We'll wait another minute and get started.
What's that?
You're not muted.
All right, we're gonna get started. Call this meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. Start with the roll call. Alderman Bilotto.
Yeah.
Aye.
Alderman Klinker.
I'm here.
Alderman Alexander.
Here.
And Alderman Johnson. All right, Alderman Johnson's absent. Moving along, approval of the minutes. I sent the minutes earlier this afternoon. Is there a motion to approve?
Bilotto makes a motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
All right, we have to do a roll call vote. Alderman Donahue's an aye. Alderman Bilotto.
Aye.
Alderman Klinker.
Aye.
And Alderman Alexander.
Aye.
All right, motion's carried. I received no public comment. At least I don't think I did. Just double check. Nope. So there's no public comment. All right, first up, order of business is payroll for January the 22nd, 2021. It's in the amount of $339,830.19. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Great. Is there a second? Anyone like
Klinker.
a second?
Yeah, Klinker.
Donahue, Chairman, is this for payroll?
This is for payroll, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Welcome, Dexter. All right. Alderman Bilotto made a motion. Alderman Klinker made the second. We'll do a roll call vote. Alderman Donahue's an aye. Alderman Bilotto.
Aye.
Alderman Klinker.
Aye.
Alderman Alexander.
Aye.
And Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
All right. Payroll is approved. Moving on, we have the accounts payable. It is for January 27th, 2021. It's in the amount of $417,932.18. Is there a motion to approve?
I have a question, Chairman.
Sure, go ahead, Alderman.
Under Odelson and Stirk, and Carrie, you'd probably want to answer. The regular bill, I had some questions, but I really don't. I mean, it all seems to be regular stuff. Under the electoral board things, I have some questions and probably more of just correcting where they belong. The first two items on here are not electoral board related. They should be under the general ledger as for election lottery and conference with clerk with election procedures. That has nothing to do with the electoral board.
Which two items are those? The item
The first
for
two.
election procedures and the
Says
ballot
here,
certification?
Yeah, ballot certification, that has nothing to do with the electoral board. And I those are valid items. I just think they should be under the general professional services.
Well, those can easily be moved to.
That's all I have for those two. Now, the rest of these, help me understand, because a lot of this seems redundant. It's conference with clerk regarding documents, and there's several different conferences with clerk, and reviewing objections to nominating petitions are in several different spots here for two different attorneys. Wouldn't it only review, or what kind of review? Isn't that the electoral board's job to review? Or is it just multiply billed on here as an accident?
There were 10 separate objections filed.
Yeah, I
which
see that
you may,
under
all
the
right,
3.5
which you may or
hours.
may not be aware of, but you're saying multiple review, and I'm looking at the bill. And
So I see under,
there was an initial review
yeah,
on December the 30th of the objections, and then there was a extensive review of 10 objections on the following day. Those are the two items that I think you're referring to. But when they first came in, they're reviewed very quickly to see exactly what they're about. And then the following day, we had to review and then begin preparing the documents that are required to convene the municipal electoral board, which you don't have time to just sit on things in an electoral board matter, which I'm sure you know.
I'm
You
aware.
have-
No,
you have
attorney,
3 to
yeah.
5 days. You have to get them to the chairperson of, and the clerk or the chairperson, the chairperson of the electoral board. And then those have to be served on all of the various participants with a hearing scheduled within 3 to 5 days. And so there was an extensive review, but it wasn't duplicative. There was an initial review on the 30th as indicated. And then, there was a review completed on the 31st, and there was a beginning to prepare the documents required to convene the board. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but.
Well, it does in part, attorney. No, and I am familiar with it. I was a township clerk that had to deal with objections. I was a board secretary to the park. I had to do objections there also. I just think this is just for the initial, before the electoral board is even convened. This is a lot of hours on here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is almost 10 hours just in the second half of this.
I'm sorry, Alderman, but in order to do it right and to do it properly, you have to expend the time. I did not initiate the objections. There were 10 objections initiated. I have no idea at this point in time who initiated them, other than I can say that the electors named on the petitions had them prepared, and they were extensive. It wasn't one objection, it was 10 objections. You can't just assume that each objection is the same until you read through the objections. And then you have to prepare, and we had to prepare 10 separate calls, 10 separate sets of exhibits, etc. And it's very time consuming. You just don't snap your fingers and have it happen. I have no idea what your experience on an electoral board is, nor is it really relevant to what we did here in this particular matter. And so what I'm telling you, I think to begin with, to begin setting up responses required not just myself, it required the assistance of 2 office assistants, and it also required consultation with other lawyers in the office to make sure that we were addressing things properly. I don't know what to tell you. You might think it's a lot of hours. I don't. Perhaps you might know more about these than I do. You may know the genesis of the actual objection, but these are the hours.
I never claimed to know either one that you just said, attorney. I'm just questioning the bill. That's my job.
Okay, well, if I've tried to respond to the questions, and I'm telling you, if you want to move the 2 items that are at the top to general, that's perfectly fine. I have no issue with that. But the work performed on these 10 objections and the lawsuit that was filed by the objectors was extensive. I don't know if you're aware of the lawsuit that was filed and that had to be addressed, because that's not on this billing. That did not happen until January. But the work was significant and extensive. But again, I didn't initiate the work. Someone else brought it about, and someone had to advise this board, which in many instances, in many of the cases, was comprised of at least 1, and in a few of the cases, 3 electoral board members who had to be appointed by the circuit court. So those are all issues that have to be examined early on and addressed early on.
Well, thank you for your explanation. I believe the first two should be moved to general corporate billing, moved off of this 20-1516. I'm disagreeing with the rest of the bill, but I'll put my disagreement out there. But the first two, at the very least, needs to be moved to the regular billing invoice.
Okay, any other questions, Fred, or anyone else, questions?
Yeah, we're talking about accounts payable, right, Chairman?
Yeah, we are, Alderman Alexander.
Okay, are there any lines for accounts payable that are over that we should know about?
Peter, could you answer that, please?
Yes, there are. Second. As we're aware, there are some lines in overtime that are over. There are also lines over for audit fees and finance. Salaries in general gov.
Hey, Topeka, I think sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I sent out the budget report, expense report to everyone, so it's you guys have the information. But if you want, I can go down each one. I have a budget report in front of me right now.
I didn't need to know each one. I'm just saying pertaining to accounts payable. Is there anything on here that made that line go over? Because if so, then those things needs to come off.
No, Alderman Alexander, I'm sorry. Those expenses need to be posted to those lines because those are the lines that they belong to, and those expenses are for 2020. And that work was incurred. It just wasn't properly planned for. So we have to pay our invoices. We can't take them out of the bill, out of the accounts payable.
Okay, but for the lines that they are over, don't we need to get those removed and get approved by the city council?
Alderman, you actually, you can't.
The finance committee can actually approve us to post those expenses to those lines because we have the funds in our bank account to cover our expenses. It's just that we didn't properly plan for these expenditures at the beginning of the year. And some of these items, they've been spent in this trend over 3 years. So this is how much the city has been spending on these items for a number of time. And these items were for expenditures that we incurred legitimately. So these are our true vendors. I mean, there's nothing that needs to be moved.
Nothing that needs to be transferred is what you're saying.
That's exactly what I stated. Nothing needs to be moved.
Chairman or Topeka, it's more of just a statement that I realized after the last city council meeting. In order to transfer funds from one line to another, it needs a 2/3 majority by our last budget and appropriation ordinance for 2020, which we're still doing these accounts here. So the motion that was made at the last city council meeting didn't pass with only 8 votes, including the mayor. So now we have to resend that back to city council to get the 10 votes to make an official transfer.
You don't, Alderman, you do not need to do that with respect to line items. The only time you need to do that is if you're going to transfer from one municipal department or agency to another, or from one fund to another.
That's what we did for
You do not have to go through that procedure. By statute, you do not have to go through that procedure if you're just moving funds from one line item to another, or if it's part of the general government appropriation for that particular subject matter. You don't have to go through that process. You're misunderstanding or misstating the requirements of the statute.
So the ordinance that was passed by the city council last April for the 2020 budget year, where it said you need a 2/3 majority to move from one line to another, is not correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
The budget and appropriation that was passed last April I believe it was passed last April, where it said a 2/3 majority is needed to move from one line item to a next is not invalid.
I don't think it was one line item to a next, because you don't have to do that. You're not required by law to do that. If there are adequate appropriations within the general governmental fund or within the department within that general governmental fund, you do not have to do that. When you have to do that is if you're going from one fund to another, or one agency to another, or possibly one department to another. But you don't have to go through that with respect to particular line items. That is not required.
So at the last city council,
That was not in the appropriation ordinance either.
so in the last city council, when we made those big moves over of $75,000 from multiple different lines and funds to other lines and funds, that violated 2/3 in our own ordinance. I'm not talking state statute. We made a more strict ordinance when we passed the budget and appropriation. We're allowed to make more stringent inside our own ordinances outside of the state statute.
I'm not mistaken, that is not in your ordinance. I don't have your appropriation ordinance in front of me, but again, and I didn't prepare the appropriation ordinance. You as a finance committee prepared the appropriation ordinance. The city is incurring expenditures. You can't not pay the vendors who you have represented to, that you will pay for the services that they're providing.
That's not what I'm saying. I just want the transfers done correctly. I think you're putting words in my mouth. I'm asking about transfers being done correctly according to our own ordinances, not paying.
Your own appropriation ordinance does not require you to get a 2/3 vote to transfer from one line item to another. That is not required by your appropriation ordinance. Your appropriation ordinance is very similar to the ones that you've adopted year in and year out. The only real difference is the amount of money you've put into the line items. There's no requirement that you get a 2/3 vote to move from pencils and papers to ink and pens. It's just, it's not required. It's not necessary. It's just like paying more overtime than you've appropriated for in any particular department. You don't have to do a 2/3 vote to do that. What you need to do is make sure that you have the funds available to pay the expense. And if it's part of your general government or part of that particular group of expenditures, such as for recreation or public works or what have you, you can move the money from within it. You don't need a 2/3 vote to transfer line to line. That's not necessary. It's not part of your ordinance, but it's not necessary either. I don't know.
Donahue, can I jump in here?
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Okay, so I got the ordinance pulled up on my computer here, ordinance 2020-014, which is the annual appropriation ordinance of the city of Blue Island, Cook County, Illinois, for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2020, ending December 31, 2020. And if you go down to section 5, it says a 2/3 vote of the corporate authorities shall be necessary in order to expend monies over the amount stated for a corporate object or purpose. And section 6 says a 2/3 vote of the corporate authorities shall be necessary in order to transfer appropriations between different line items, between categories of objects and purposes, or within any department or amongst departments. That's what I think you're talking about, right, Fred?
Exactly. Thank you for
Okay,
pulling it
well,
up.
if that's in there, then I guess you have to do it, but you should not, you still have to pay the expenses that have been incurred. I don't know what else to tell you.
If I could continue, Alderman Donahue, I think the purpose of that, and I think what we ran through, not this year, not 2020, but 2019, was we went over on so many things and we weren't informed of what we were going over on. I think the purpose when we set these appropriations, and I understand what the finance director is saying, that some of them were set low. Some of them were set low on purpose so that when we got near that, we would have a chance to review it and decide what we were going to do. By not giving us these budget transfers throughout the year, that didn't happen.
I don't think that that's.
Now we're stuck at the end of the year, and we're looking at, now we're stuck at the end of the year, and we're looking at, I'm looking at audit fees and finance professional consulting, minus $71,269, minus $27,000 in overtime for the fire department. That's just two that I just glimpsed at. I don't have that back up on my computer, but I think that was the entire purpose, was that the year before things got moved around and we didn't know what was going on. We as the finance committee are responsible for watching what's going on in the city's finances. And I think that's all the intent and purpose was what we did. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chairman Donahue. I think that's what we even talked about last year. And I understand that was before the current finance director's here. But I think we've relayed that numerous times through numerous meetings. And once again, it didn't happen.
Alderman Klinker, I think your audit showed you had a positive fund balance for the fiscal year 2019. So with respect to your suggestion that you went over on so many things, the audit showed that for 2019, overall, you were in a positive fund balance. So I don't know what you're specifically.
Okay, I'll tell you what I'm specifically saying. I'm not
however-
talking about overall, I'm talking about these different line items. Last year, and I'm not talking this year where the current finance director's here, the previous one, there was stuff moved all over the place. So we didn't know, the idea of the appropriations, correct me if I'm wrong, is to set out what we're planning on spending, not change things from one fund to another because, oh, we didn't do this without notifying us. That's all we're asking for, was a notification that this stuff was happening. No one's saying don't pay the bills. No one's saying don't pay the bills. I don't think that's what Fred's saying. I'm not saying that. What we're saying is we need to know, as the finance committee who's responsible for watching the city's finances, what's going on, and we weren't informed.
Alderman Klinker, if I may.
Alderman, please, Carrie, if I may, I just want to reel it back a little bit. So Alderman Klinker, as I've stated to you before, I have not moved any money outside of what I brought to the finance committee. And also, I brought it to you guys' attention several times in the final quarter of 2020 of what line items were going over budget, and you told me to leave them alone. Don't make any transfers, which is fine. I actually think that that's the better approach. But for expenditures that we have incurred throughout the year, we must pay those vendors, and we must pay it on the lines that from an accounting standpoint that they belong on. And that's all I'm saying right now. So the original statement from Alderman Alexander was to pull those, and I'm saying, no, we can't. We can't pull those items because we incurred those expenses.
Okay, I didn't say pull them not to pay them. I said to pull them so that they may go to the city council to notify them of what line items were they being spent out of that was over the appropriation, so that it may be voted on. That's what I said.
I did not hear you say pull them to take to city council. I'm sorry, I did not hear that part. I heard pull the invoices.
Yes, I do understand, and I do know you cannot pull payables not to pay them. But we did discuss previous meetings that if we go over a line item, the appropriation amount, then that particular invoice will be sent to city council to let them know, to inform them that this particular invoice is over the appropriation. Wanted to notify them of that and to vote on to let them know that they're going to be paid still out of that fund.
Chairman Donahue, can I say one more thing?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Klinker.
So all along, since I started almost 2 years ago now as alderman, I've asked for regular revenue and expense reports. I understand that this is a new finance director and she came into a mess. I got that. I'm not slamming anybody, not trying. This isn't an intentional slam on anyone. All I'm saying is, had we been given information all along, then we would know that we're minus $71,000 in this account or minus whatever in that account. That is the reason why for so long I've been harping on that. So that's it. I'm done with what I have to say.
Yeah, this is Alderman Johnson. I've been here several years, and to be honest with you, our financials have been in disarray for a very long time. That's why I've been asking for the audit that I never got because of that. We had Lori Brown in charge for a while, and she was finding checks written out, found in drawers, up under calendars and things of that nature. And it never got right. It never got right since Mr. Anastasia, the senior. And so now here we are with Topeka trying to make bricks with no straw. She needs help because, as you just stated, Alderman Klinker, this is 2.5 years you've been asking for these type of reports from one person. We didn't volunteer to go get her no more help, none of this. But we're asking her to bring all this to the table all at one time by herself. And this is way longer than just 2 years. This is past your tenure. So as I spoke and speak now, we still need to have an audit because our finances are jacked up.
All right, is there any other
Chairman,
questions about the accounts payable?
Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Any actual questions about the accounts payable?
No, I want to make a motion, and I want to clarify before I make the motion. The 75,000 we voted on at the last council needs to be re-voted on at the next city council because it wasn't a 2/3 majority. That being said, I want to make a motion to approve accounts payable, removing any line items that are exceeded right now and sending them to the next city council agenda. I'm making a motion to remove anything that's exceeded, any line items off the accounts payable to be sent to the next city council. I'm approving everything else on here. I'm just pushing the can down the road for anything that's exceeded to go to the next city council agenda. Do I need to clarify that anymore?
Yes,
No,
for
do you-
me, Alderman Bilotto, please. The only thing that I want to know is, are we pushing it to the next city council meeting so that they can approve for these expenses to be posted to these negative lines?
Yes, it needs to be
I
posted.
just want to know what my
line
next
item.
action is. I'm sorry.
It needs to be a separate line item for the council to approve with a 2/3 majority. Let's at least one time before we close out 2020, follow our own rules. And it's not too much to ask. We haven't done it. No fault, again, no fault of any employee. It's something I just want us to follow our own rules that we put in our own ordinance for at least one time. The city council can approve it with a 2/3 majority. The next posted meeting, it has to be on the agenda.
Can I just ask a question, if I may?
Go ahead,
Just ask
Barry.
a question.
Go ahead.
You were, I think you were members of the Finance Committee for the last appropriation, and you had the prior year's appropriation in front of you at the time. And in making appropriations, in many instances, if my recollection is correct, you reduced the line items with full knowledge of what they were the prior year. And if I'm not mistaken, this entire Finance Committee was the Finance Committee that did the appropriation. When you did that, when you reduced line items below the prior year's expenditures, knowing, as Alderman Klinker has aptly stated, that expenses were incurred that you weren't aware of, but they were over the line item, why did you reduce them below the prior year if you knew that the expenses had already exceeded the amount that you were putting into the line item? I'm just asking that out of curiosity. I wasn't there when you did that.
It's called being fiscally conservative, knowing what we had to deal with in the previous years. Like Alderman Johnson said, we cut many line items, not just one or two, across the entire board. If I remember correctly, those meetings were 4 or 5 hours long. So I'm asking that we push anything that's not appropriated for right now, that is exceeded, to the next posted agenda, so we can follow the rules with our last, because these should be the last accounts payable out of 2020. So let's follow our own rules at least one time. So I made a motion. I'm looking for a second.
Fred, I just got a question on it, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, Chairman.
Go ahead, Dexter.
I don't think it, first of all, fire and Mead was not appropriated correctly because we didn't take in, of course, the closing of Metro South, which actually, that was an added expenditure put on us to service, our people for longer distances and things of that nature. And like I said, we wasn't equipped to do that. So how do we, appropriate for something that we didn't see coming?
Alderman Johnson, the hospital closed down over a year ago. It was taken into our appropriation when we were looking at those figures. They closed their doors in September of 2019. We didn't start the appropriation until February of 2020.
The hospital closed in 2020, Fred. That's when we had that opportunity to get $2 million and you walked away from it.
2020, we just finished 2020, attorney.
It
closed in 2019.
This has nothing to do with the accounts payable Metro South. There's nothing to do with
Get
the
your
accounts
dates
payable,
straight. It
so.
closed in 2019. It didn't close in 2020. We just finished 20. We're in January of 21 right now.
So Topeka, do you have the new number with what's being removed?
No, I don't, because when I think about what you guys stated, I'm going to have to pick apart part of Odelson and Sturck's invoice because they have itemized entries. And then I'm going to have to take another look at the accounts payable. So I know it's Farmer and Rogers, and I think it's another line here for payroll related to physicians, immediate care. So I don't have the number right now. I can follow up with you in the morning.
Okay, is that okay with the committee? She'll let us know what's being removed, and we'll have it for city council tomorrow night then. Fred, you're on mute.
I said, I have no problem with her taking her time tomorrow and get a last dollar amount to the committee. What I'm asking for right now, I'm just making a motion and she could tomorrow figure out what the dollar amount is.
Okay, so there's a motion by Fred. Would someone like to second Alderman Bilotto's motion?
Klinker.
So with this, Chairman, is that what we putting off tonight actually going to be done tomorrow?
That's
Next
correct.
posted agenda. It's got to be a separate line item to vote on at a city council agenda.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, hearing none. There's a motion by Alderman Bilotto and a second by Alderman Klinker. We'll do a roll call vote. Alderman Donahue's an aye. Alderman Bilotto.
Aye.
Alderman Klinker.
Aye.
Alderman Alexander.
Aye.
And Alderman Johnson.
No.
All right. 4 ayes and 1 no. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. All right.
Alderman Donahue, I just wanted to clarify right here from ABC 7 News, Metro South closed its doors September 30th, 2019. Okay, it's been more than a year. And
okay.
Money in excess of $2 million since that day.
Yeah, the $2 million still stands as something you walked away from, along with additional funds.
Attorney, I don't remember city council when anything was voted on. Okay,
Please,
you're bringing all these blasphemous stuff onto a public meeting that has never been voted on in any city council meeting. It shows the bias, city attorney. Please be not biased.
All right, let's all get along and keep moving on. We have a lot still to discuss. Next, we have the AT&T Lingo contract update. I know Topeka's here, but I saw Mr. Paul Hollick is on the line. If Paul wanted to provide us with an update. Paul, floor is yours, please.
Sure. Well, hopefully this will be some good news. And Topeka and I have been working together throughout the last few months. AT&T has been nothing but unhelpful throughout this process. What has transpired, and the whole goal was to start saving money by moving lines over to Lingo. We have, in fact, started saving dollars on the lines that have been moved over to Lingo already. Topeka made mention that some of the committee has some concern of why the AT&T bill is not going down, and we've uncovered why. AT&T has increased their rates threefold in the last couple of months since we've moved lines over to Lingo. They have the right to do that. I think it's bad business, but it's AT&T. So there's a batch of 30 additional lines that need to move to Lingo. They were unable to move to Lingo because they are configured in what is called Centrex. And I'm just going to keep it to a high level. Centrex is a very old type of configuration that analog lines were delivered years and years and years ago. And in order to move them to Lingo, they cannot have the Centrex configuration on them. So AT&T kind of played, hide and seek for the last 2.5, 3 months in us requesting them to change it from Centrex to regular. And we've really had to put some pressure on them to get the truth on lots of things. So they now will move them and change that configuration, but it is at a minor cost to do so. And that would be $95 a line. However, having them do this and spending the dollars will save money in the long run. So the cost would be approximately $2,800 to do that AT&T would charge us. However, those 30 lines, they're currently charging us $326 per line. So if we allow them, they're going to charge us the $2,800 to change them, and then we will be able to move them to Lingo. And then moving forward, those 30 lines will only cost us $1,200 per month plus tax and surcharges, instead of the current $9,780 per month that they're currently charging us at this time. So after we make this move, our savings moving forward will be $8,500 per month.
What'd
I
you
have
say
a
it was
question.
again?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Johnson.
How much is it going to cost for us to give AT&T for this initial change, so you guys could be able to jump on?
Sure. So there's 30 lines, 30 telephone lines that we have to move. We have to have them change their configuration for us to move them to Lingo. So it's
Right.
$95 times 30 is $2,850. Okay.
Okay.
So that's some costs that we have to do. Okay.
But we'll get it back the next month.
Yeah, correct.
Easy.
So
Easy.
if we don't on those 30 lines, we will continue to pay $9,780 on those lines, which we
That's pretty much a no-brainer.
want to not do, right? So we give them
Yes,
the
sir.
$2,850, and then once that takes place, then we can take them away from AT&T and move them to Lingo. That price, instead of $326 per line, will go to $40 per line with Lingo. So moving forward, that's an $8,580, give or take, again, taxes and surcharge moving forward, that we will see come off the ridiculously $20,000 bill that we get on an ongoing basis from AT&T. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. I
Okay.
just got a question for Topeka. Topeka, will this take us over our appropriated lines to try to get this converted?
So what I actually recommend doing for this is to actually implement it in our 2020 appropriation so that we can plan and show that this was something that we did in 2021 and it was an expense that we incurred to ultimately reap a savings. And then we'll be able to see the decline in AT&T expenditures compared to 2020 once we appropriate less on those lines, giving the savings that we're going to have.
Thank you.
All right, any other
Just want to
questions?
correct 2021 appropriation. So it's Topeka, just so we're all on the same page. It's won't affect anything we did. So
Okay, any questions for Paul about Lingo and AT&T?
Hey, Paul, can you talk to the committee a little bit about what's actually going to happen with our AT&T invoices? Are they going to go away? Are we going to still see some kind of fees? Can you just talk them through like what the billing is going to look like over a period of time once we actually implement this change?
Yeah, absolutely. So just, again, the ongoing question has been, why are we not seeing a decrease since we've already moved 20 some lines already to Lingo and so on and so forth. And again, the reason has been AT&T was charging us $150 a line 6 months ago, and they have gradually increased the cost of these lines to a ridiculous $326. So the initial move of these 30 lines, we will start to see a decrease off that $20,000, but we're not going to stop there, right? So there's an additional 4 lines that I need guidance from the committee on. There's 4 telephone numbers that the city of Blue Island is paying for. And the reason why is because they're non-emergency numbers that were part of the 911 center. So being that we don't have dispatching anymore at the 911 center. We still have 4 lines, and these lines are getting forwarded to Cal Park, to Calcom. 1 line is for Posen and 3 are for Midlothian. So again, those 4 lines, each line costing us $326 per month plus usage. So the guidance is I can circle back with, I think it's Sergeant Sisk, he's Sergeant again, Desk Sergeant, circle back to see how we can handle these lines. And if we can offload these lines to Cal Park to have them pick these lines, and we'd have to figure out at Cal Park who is responsible for running Calcom so that they can pick these numbers. Because right now we're paying for them. I don't want to just disconnect them for life safety issues, right? We have to kind of think that through, but we shouldn't be paying for them.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Members of the
I
committee?
got a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Chairman. I'm kind of leery about dealing with Cal Park. That's one, because we didn't call a couple of lawsuits, which is 911 things. So say for instance, Blue Island goes back to having their 911 center, hypothetically. Would that be a great cost to have those lines transferred back, or about the same?
So the cost itself, so how you transfer lines between entities is a letter of authorization. So we would, and Cal Park would have to work together to allow an LOA, letter of authorization, to be signed for Cal Park to take them. If they choose not to take them, I don't know where the predicament comes into, right? Because right now when you dial these 4 numbers, it's automatically call forwarding to Calcom.
Okay, anything else?
Again, I can reach out to CISC and find out if we could just cancel them, if they are meaningless. If they are, then we can do that. Or once we're done moving the lines that we need to move to Lingo, we can leave these with AT&T. And then if for any reason we think we will be dispatching again, then we can enter a new contract with AT&T to lower the amount on these 4 lines from $326 to $50 or whatever promotion they have going on, if we want to retain them.
Hey, Alderman, this is Sergeant Sisk. I just wanted to let you guys know I am on the line, and I was the one that handled. I was the one that handled the transferring of the 911 center over to county. The likelihood that we would ever go back, Alderman, to answer your question, is extremely, extremely low. It saved the city about $5 million over the course of 5 years. We're still in those 5 years. The operating costs to operate a standalone center have just become so outrageous that it's basically impossible. The grant money that the government gives, they will not give to a standalone center because they're looking for 911 agencies to push to big centers such as county. So for that reason alone, we would never get the grant money. But be that as it may, even if that ever happened, to transfer the lines back would be a whole process we'd have to go through. But the issue here is these were never our 911 lines in the first place. They were 911 lines that were used for Posen and or Calcom. When Calcom opened their center, or Calumet Park, I should say, for Posen and or Calumet Park and or Midlow, when Calcom opened their center and then pulled Posen and Midlow over, they did not handle it correctly. They did not take the steps that we took with AT&T to make sure our lines got transferred correctly to county. That's why we've ended up stuck with them. So we're essentially paying for services for other towns. So there's no reason to keep these lines under our name. We do need to, as the alderman stated, we do need to be careful and not just cut these lines off. There's a way that we need to do it correctly so that there's no loss of service, but there is a way to do that. It takes a lot of work and coordination through AT&T. They're a real pain, but we are spending a great deal of money for services for other towns right now.
Thank
right.
you, Officer Fisk, because I'm quite sure you remember what went on with the Cal Park situation. But also, would this be a great help for the fire department as far as generating revenue with the ALS?
Well, I can just say that it'll be a savings to the city in general, because of the amount of money we're paying for these lines. These lines are expensive. So in general, it would be a savings to the city. How that money is then allocated, I mean, it would be up to you guys. But, there's just no reason for us to be paying this.
I agree with Officer, and if there's a safe way to do it, I agree we should be doing this to save the cost.
Yes, I think the consensus is to go ahead, Paul, with what
Okay.
you want to move forward on.
Okay, then I will, Kevin, I'll reach out to you in the next few days. We can schedule time to go through it and start the process.
Sure. And just to let you know, my extension is 7005. I'm back in an office, so if you need to get a hold of me, 396-7005.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Sergeant Fisk.
No problem.
All right. Thanks. Anything else for Paul?
So Topeka, to answer your question and for the committee to understand, these 4 lines would be an additional, we'll work to get these removed so we're no longer responsible for them and costing the city money. There are some other additional line items on the AT&T bill from legacy connections, T1 connections for either alarm lines or network connections to Harvey, Posen, Midlow, so on and so forth. So we're working through that to see if any of them are active or not active. If we can cancel them, we will continue to spend the time to figure out a way to disconnect them in a safe manner. And again, I'll work with Officer Sisk on that. So the goal will be to continue to eliminate the AT&T bill as much as we possibly can. Not saying that we can get rid of it 100%, but the goal will be to pay as little as we have to, and to continue to work at that.
Thank you, Paul. So essentially, once we, let me back up. So the next steps for us would be that we would need to get the contract from AT&T over to the Finance Committee.
So the next step is to not sign a contract with AT&T that they're trying to force us to do. So what we need to do is we need to pay AT&T the $2,850 for the $95 per line charge to have them reconfigured. Once that's complete, then we can have Lingo take those numbers away from AT&T so we can see that, $8,500 savings, not $8,500 savings. So that's the next step. AT&T is pressuring us to sign a new contract for either 12, 24, or 36 months, which we do not want to do because then we'll be sucked in. We don't want to do that. So we have
So we do not need a contract to initiate the $2,850 to reconfigure the lines. Okay.
My understanding there isn't. The AT&T rep Jane will have to, if there is some type of invoice or something that they, or an email that documents that, yes, we're saying, please change the configuration on these lines. Yes, we're willing to take the $95 charge per line. That's what we need to do. Those are next steps.
Thank you, Paul.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Paul, for the update. Appreciate it.
Sure. No problem.
Paul, this is Alderman Johnson. With all of this going on, could you make sure that you keep Topeka and my chairman in the loop as this proceeds on?
100%. Topeka and I talk at least once a week.
And Chairman Donahue.
Sure, no problem.
Great. All right. Thank you again, Paul. Appreciate it. We're going to keep on moving along. We have the Cdbg Capital Improvement Grant application. Mr. Alvarez, floor's yours.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Donahue. So this is Cook County Community Development Block Grant. They fund both demolition projects and capital improvement projects typically we use for street resurfacing and repair. This year we've got Collins Street the 11955 Vincennes demolition, and also 119th place, which will all either start or finish construction in the spring. So this is an application this year for a construction project that will be in 2022. The award amounts are, if y'all are used to these, the award amounts are up to $400,000. Typical award amount is about $200,000, and we usually apply for about $300,000. The last 2 years, Cook County has been we've been extremely lucky with Cook County in that they've been funding 100% of the construction costs of our projects. That is atypical, but I mean, that is a 2 year in a row streak now. So you never know if it'll continue, but that's the deal. These, should we use them for roadway repairs, they usually cover 2 to 3 blocks of streets in poor condition. And they're streets that have to be in areas of low to moderate income for the 2019 fiscal year. The application cost for these projects, which is what we're coming to you here tonight with finance for approval, is typically less than $2,400. And were the finance committee to agree to go forward, the next step would be to take the current map of eligible areas to Municipal Services Committee on February 9th, for a city council resolution on February 23rd, and to complete the application with supporting resolution before the deadline on March 12th.
Okay. Any questions for Eric?
Has this gone to municipal? I'm assuming it has.
Alderman Bilotto, no, so we took this to Topeka and Jim last week, and they felt that it would be better to start with finance to get approval for the application before we take it to municipal services. So if you all approve to go ahead, we'll put it on the municipal services agenda to select a street on February 9th.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Is there a motion to approve this item?
Klinker.
All right. Is there a second?
A second.
Alderman Bilotto, great. We have to do a roll call vote. Alderman Donahue is an aye. Alderman Bilotto.
Aye.
Alderman Klinker.
Aye.
Alderman Alexander.
Aye.
And Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
All right, you guys have it. Motion's carried. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, great. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Chairman.
Great. Next, we have the WOW lease agreement. Mr. Horvath, floor is yours, sir.
Yes, I submitted to I believe it was to the chairman, copy of the proposal from WOW. Their lease for a parcel of property that's located on the Public Works facility expired in November. That was for a term of 19 years. They are proposing to renew the lease. They have offered a one-time payment of $85,000 for another 19-year lease, or another option of 19 equal payments of $6,052.63 annually. They sent that to me. I'm submitting it to you for your consideration and comments so I can reply to their council.
Alderman Donahue?
Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
Unless you already did the math. So if we take the $85,000 one payment, it's $85,000. If we take the equal payments, which I'm always in favor of equal payments because it spreads it out and it's easier to budget, $115,000, it's a difference of $30,000 right there. I think it'd be a no-brainer not to take the equal payments. Or renegotiate.
Yeah, I agree with you, Alderman Bilotto, just since it is more money. Any other questions or comments?
I'm not
Yeah,
familiar with this particular issue, so can someone please explain this one to me?
The lease, WOW leases a piece of ground up at the Public Works facility on Wyerton Road. They have a building on there where they store their equipment. The property is 110 feet long and 40 feet wide. They've had that lease in effect since November of 2001. It was a 19-year lease. They use a piece of the property that the Public Works facility did not, or the Public Works Department did not need for its operations. And the only thing they do there is store their equipment, which they apparently use for the cable services or other types of services they provide to residents in the area. That's the best I can tell you, Alderman.
Alderman Don, you have another question?
Sure. I think Alderman Johnson had one though before you. So Dex, if you wanted to go.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with you and Fred about the, 115 grand versus 85.
Great. Yeah. All right, Fred, you're up.
And just out of curiosity, Attorney Horvath, was this just their offer or did we negotiate this amount?
No, this was their proposal that they sent to us on January 11th.
Okay, so roughly $600 a month is what they're offering on the payment plan. I'd like to
6,000 a month.
offer of just round.
6,000 a year, or excuse me, 6,000 per year.
Yeah, it's $500 some dollars a month.
Per year for 19 years.
Yeah, that's my point. It's $500 some dollars a month. If we round up to 600, 7,200 a year for equal payments. I think they would probably accept it because they're assuming we're going to take the lump sum. They'll probably be happy we do not want the lump sum. So I'm going to suggest we renegotiate to a counter of $7,200 a year. The worst they can say is no.
Chairman Donahue?
Sure, go ahead, Paul.
Fred, I agree with you. My experience in the tech field, the last thing they're going to want to do is pull any equipment out of there. So I think you guys have leverage here to not go crazy, but I would agree with you asking for that increase. It would be a nightmare for them to not use that location. So,
Fred, what was the amount you suggested?
I was being conservative, but by all means, if the committee has different items, I was just rounding up. They were $506 a month or something like that. I rounded up to 600, which gave you 7,200 a year, an even clean amount. However, if the committee feels $600 is cheap, which it is for the amount of land they rent from us, then I would counter with anything you guys feel appropriate. But my point is to counter with something. Because they're going to assume we're taking the ballpark. Most like lottery winners, they take the lump sum payment. They usually don't go for the payment plan. So I think we have room to negotiate a little bit.
All right, I'm fine with the 7,200 if everyone else is.
Works for me.
All right, Carrie, is that doable?
I'll make the counter proposal tomorrow, and I'll let you know tomorrow night if I get a response.
Great. All right, Fred, did you want to make that motion then?
I'll make the motion.
All right. Is there a second for Alderman Bilotto's motion?
A second.
Klinker.
Johnson.
I heard Alderman Alexander first, but thank you all. All right, we have to do a roll call. Alderman Donahue's an aye. Alderman Bilotto.
Aye.
Alderman Klinker.
Aye.
Alderman Alexander.
Aye.
And Alderman Johnson.
Yes.
All right, 5 ayes, motion's carried. Great, thank you, Carrie. The next two items are things that I believe we already approved in this committee, but I don't know if there was ever a resolution, so we're just coming back to do a little house cleaning. The first one's a resolution approving an agreement with Videotech Corporation for installation and maintenance of electronic security equipment and software. Is there a motion to approve?
Just so you know, I was not aware that these had not been approved, but the contract with Videotech, they've installed the equipment and software. Apparently the contract has never been signed by the city. And so that's the need for the resolution in this particular instance.
Got it. All right. Thank you, Carrie. Is there a motion for approval?
Johnson.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Alderman Bilotto with the second. We'll do a roll call vote. Donahue's an aye. Bilotto. Alderman Klinker.
Aye.
Alderman Alexander.
Aye.
And Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
All right, 5 ayes, the ayes have it. Motion's carried. Next, it's a resolution approving a service agreement with Mead Inc. for traffic signal maintenance for the city of Blue Island.
And with respect to this matter, Chairman Donahue, apparently the same thing occurred. The contract has been in effect, but Mead communicated to the mayor's office that they had not received a signed copy. And when there was a search for the resolution, it couldn't be located. So the same thing holds true here. You have a contract ongoing. Mead apparently repairs all of the traffic signals in the city and also inspects them. And this would just be authorizing the signature on the contract at this point in time.
Got it, great. Thank you, Carrie. All right, is there a motion to approve?
Aye. I'll make a motion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Alexander, thank you. All right, roll call vote. Alderman Donahue's an aye. Alderman Bilotto.
Aye.
Alderman Klinker.
Aye.
Alderman Alexander.
Aye.
And Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
All right, great. 5 ayes, motion's carried. Moving on, any aldermanic comments or concerns? Hearing none, is there a motion for adjournment?
Klinker.
I'm sorry, Chairman. I just wanted to make sure or make notice about appropriating us a better sound system for that city council. Because like when you are listening in as a consumer, can't really understand and hear what's going on. So, the system is probably about 400 years old. So,
All right, well, Topeka, if you want to take note of that, so we can consider it when we do the appropriation. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Bilotto, thank you. All right, we'll have to do a roll call. Donahue's an aye. Alderman Bilotto.
Aye.
Alderman Klinker.
Aye.
Alderman Alexander.
Aye.
And Alderman Johnson.
for the principal, no.
All right, 4 ayes, 1 no. We are
I got you,
adjourned.
Alderman Johnson. I got you.
All right, we are adjourned at 7:04 p.m. It's the longest meeting we had in a while, but nice seeing everyone's lovely faces, and we'll see everyone again tomorrow for City Council. Good night.